now we have this clinic up here with a full-time doctor. And today, a doctor in Cuba, when you become a doctor, you've got to spend 2 years out in the country. That's your dedication to the people. And a dentist who comes 1 day a week. And for more serious things, we're not more than 20 minutes away from a larger hospital. That's in the Escambray. So that's freedom. We're freer today. We have more life. And today, this man is going to night school. He said, I can read. I can read. Do you know what it means to be able to read? Do you know what it means to be able not to read? I remember when I gave my book to my father, I dedicated a book of mine, Power and the Powerless, to my father. Said, to my father with my love. Gave him a copy of the book. He opened it up, looked at that. He'd only gone to the 7th grade. He was a son of an immigrant, a working class Italian. And he opens the book and he starts looking through it. And he gets misty-eyed, very misty-eyed. And I thought it's because he was so touched that his son had dedicated a book to him. That wasn't the reason. He looks up to me and says, I can't read this, kid. I said, that's okay, Dad. Neither can the students. I mean, that's not something. I mean, don't worry about that. I wrote it for you. I mean, it's your book, and you don't have to read it. You know, it's a very complicated book, academic book. He said, I can't read this book. And the defeat that man felt. That's what illiteracy is about. That's what the joy of literacy programs is. That's why in Nicaragua you got people walking proud now for the first time. They were animals before. They weren't allowed to read. They weren't taught to read. And that's why I support revolution. The revolution that feeds the children gets my support. Not blindly, not unqualified. And the Reaganite government that tries to stop that kind of process, that tries to keep those people in poverty and illiteracy and hunger, that gets my undiluted animosity and opposition. And I said to this campesino, I said, do you like Fidel? And he says, sí, with all her soul. And I said to this campesino, I said, do you like Fidel? And he says, sí, with all her soul. And I said to this campesino, I said, do you like Fidel? And he says, sí, with all her soul.
Dad.
market mythology, it argues that the most ruthless, selfish, plunderers, applying the most heartless measures in cold-blooded pursuit of corporate interest and wealth accumulation, will produce the best results for all of us. Through something called the invisible hand. The free market mythology, it argues that the most ruthless, selfish, opportunistic, greedy, calculating plunderers, applying the most heartless measures in cold-blooded pursuit of corporate interest and wealth accumulation, will produce the best results for all of us. Through something called the invisible hand.
What's your plan, huh? 2 miles an hour. There you go.
Hey, slow down! Children play here, you fat cow! Hey, Wally.
Oh, hey. Hot one today, huh?
Yeah?
And I said to this campesino, I said, "Do you like Fidel?" And he said, "Sí, sí, with all her soul."
There we go. Okay, this is fucking weird. I muted it, I unmuted it, and then I muted it again somehow. Okay, well that's a big ass fail. Thankfully no one was watching. Okay. Okay. Now I don't feel so bad. I was here, thankfully there was no one here. My microphone was once again muted. This is something I have to look up for. Thankfully, I found out very quickly. There we go. Anyway, hot one today.
Hey, Wally.
Oh, hey. Hot one today, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, it's a fucking hot ass day. I've been talking about how hot it is, and we're not even technically in summer yet. We are still in spring, and I'm already sweating just sitting here. Anyway, today we have a pretty big busy day. That's why I started the stream slightly late. I apologize for that. It's important to stay hydrated. Another thing I mentioned. Nothing else really. I mean, even though I talked for a little bit, didn't miss out on much. But what I was talking about is that we have a very international day today. Mostly revolving around the American continent. Right? Not necessarily just the United States, not just necessarily Latin America, kind of like a combination of the whole thing. Why is that? We have news in the United States that is directly linked with what is going on in Latin America. We have some news coming from Bolivia. We have some news, big AI data center news in the United States, and we also have some things surrounding what happened with the Gaza flotilla. Now, with the flotilla, we might talk about that a little bit. I also wanted to talk about a little bit what we started last week with in regards to Keir Starmer and the Labour Party's failure in the United Kingdom. We might finish off on that. But let's get started. Anyway, anyone in here, how are we doing today? Before we start with the news, before we start with the not so nice, not so pleasant stuff, how is our day doing? How are we doing today? My day is pretty good. Pretty good. I was in my house the entire day, doing study, also a little bit of preparation for the stream. That's why I was late, but very easy. I'm glad I didn't leave. It's so hot outside, but I am gonna leave after this. Anyone in the chat? How are we today? How are we? Tell me. Anything interesting? Any questions? Anything we would like to cover? I have my structure, but we can talk about anything. How's the socio-political, economic state of the world right now? Spoilers, it's not very good. It's not very good. Alright, I want to start off with something very funny coming from my country, the Czech Republic, which is kind of like if a Freudian slip was not necessarily spoken but shown, this would be it. It happened in the Czech Republic. Let me pull this off. A member of the Czech Parliament, Julia Šmejkalová, right? A center-right, centrist politician, very neoliberal, very austerity measures, very European Union, right? Part of the political party, STAN, has released a video couple days ago, like a week ago. I wanted to talk about it last week, but I didn't get to it, so I'm talking about it now. She released a video which is very emblematic of just anti-communism, anti-socialism right on its face, right? I'm gonna have to translate it because it's in Czech, but the visual aspect of it just kind of speaks for itself. So, here she is. She is on one of the main squares in Prague, and there was a demonstration and a counter-demonstration. There was a demonstration that was seemingly anti-EU, and they were waving both Soviet flags, but also some Russian flags, so kind of like a combination of all around European skepticism, but also maybe some Russian sympathy. Doesn't really matter. That part is kind of irrelevant, right? What they're doing is that they are talking about being on this communist demonstration, and then there's this anti-communist demonstration, and they are simply asking questions to these anti-communist demonstrators about what do they think? Wait. I need something for this. I need something for this. There we go. Right. Okay. I'm just going to let the clip play out, and we're gonna look at it together. Oh. Is he gonna play? Oh no. Oh no, what is that? Oh, fuck, never mind. Why did it zoom out so much? Ah, come on, play again. I'm gonna do it again, just for the reaction value. Oh, what is that? What is that? What is that symbol? Tell me. What is that symbol? Now, to the common person, this means nothing, probably, right? This is just a little bit of a, just like a sun symbol. It almost looks like, right? Kind of like a sun symbol. Let me show you what that is. That, my friends, is one of the most infamous Nazi symbols that there are. It's the black sun. The black sun symbol, originating in Nazi Germany and later employed by neo-Nazis and other far-right groups, right? Once, after Nazism was defeated, of course, a lot of Nazi symbols were prohibited, declared illegal, especially in the most affected zones. Germany, even the Czech Republic, has a lot of prohibited Nazi symbols, of course, as it should be. But of course, there are so many fucking Nazi symbols that some of them slip under the legal rug. This is one of them, right? So if you see a lot of these symbols come up, that's what it is, right? I wanted to take a look at this because it's kind of emblematic of what anti-communism really is, right? This person is interviewing active anti-communist protesters, yet when you kind of look at it, and people who base their entire personality on being anti-communist, you just go fully to the other side of the far right. And I'm not saying that every anti-communist is a Nazi, but so many anti-communists I know are like very susceptible to just falling into Nazi conspiracy theories without them knowing, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily about the Holocaust. It just goes about questions usually relating to culture, right? Migrant stuff like that. And I'm sure that there were a bunch of other anti-communist protesters who were not open Nazis like this guy, but there's just something about, you know, something about that is just like, just falls on its face, you know. The joke speaks for itself. This joke speaks for itself. But I wanted to get started with that because it's funny and I laughed when I saw it. It's not really news, you know. The girl caught a lot of hate for it, as she kind of should, because she is platforming this guy that's, you know, saying like, stop with the communists and we want him out, while he's holding a flag with a Nazi symbol. Then in the comments, she wants to defend herself. That she actually kind of tried to spin it around and say that the guy was actually not a Nazi and that he was a journalist, and he just so happened to stand next to the Nazis, you know, which I guess makes it better. Depends on who you ask. Oh, okay. Anyway, anything else? Anyone else? All right. Let's get started with the news, because the news never sleeps. And the perks of being a journalist is that you're never bored. Let's just close a few of these tabs. Let's get started with probably the most relevant news, I would say. the most relevant news that there is, and that is affecting us all on a daily basis. Wait, let me just move this camera a little bit. I feel like I'm... There we go. Is this music gonna play? What's going on? Why are we being so silent? Oh, it got muted. Sorry. There we go. So, news that's affecting us all. Here is, to all of us, a reminder that we are essentially living in a plutocracy. This is the new... God damn it. This is the new mega project of billionaire Kevin O'Leary. It is a 40 fucking... It's called it's called Project Stratos. It's a $100 billion data center construction project in Norton, Utah, right? Under the wing of billionaire Kevin O'Reilly, who essentially, without any permission from the local residents, purchased a 40,000 acre piece of land in Norton, Utah, to construct what is probably the largest data center known to man, right? It is essentially a Death Star thrown onto a desert, but it is not just an uninhabited desert. It has a town in it, to probably perform some of the most evil operations known to man. Now, as much as this image kind of makes it look like it is the middle of the desert, that is not entirely true. The area that was bought, or I think that is still in the process of being bought, is called Bear River. Bear River, or like the area, is a natural preservation, or it's a land of preservation of nature, of bird refuge that supports around 67 species of migratory birds. Right, this is quick research that I did, but it is not just a desert area. It's an area that actually holds wildlife and a place that is necessary for the preservation of many wild animals. Now this guy, wait, let me pull up a picture, because it's a very relevant thing. I don't want it to be known. Kevin O'Leary. Oh. There we go. You've probably seen him around. He was, I think, a host of Shark Tank, which was kind of like this celebrity reality TV show where they tried to pitch ideas to billionaire investors, and then they would like take it or not. Shark Tank. It was a very famous show. It was kind of like American Talent, or the talent TV show, Simon Cowell, but for finance bros and people that think that capitalism is a good system. Very famous guy, very right wing. He was on he's a supporter of Trump, I believe. Yeah, he's on Fox Business. He's a fucking demon. This guy for a long time has been a supporter, right? He's a multi-billion-dollar investor, but now he's invested in essentially the Death Star of AI data centers. Now, why are data centers so bad, right? I mean, yeah, we have the natural aspect where this guy is building the data centers on essentially naturally preserved land. That's the one aspect. The other aspect is the contamination that AI data centers are creating. Now, in just the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2025, this is a statistic that I'm reading, the value of data center construction in place by the private sector in the United States has gone from $9.23 billion, which is already a pretty significant number, to $41 billion just in the last 5 years, right? 5-6 years, 300% increase, all right? In terms of contamination, a medium-sized data center can A medium-sized data center can consume up to 110 million gallons of water per year, which is equivalent to the annual water usage of approximately 1,000 households. Right? Apart from that, the electricity generation for global data centers could have produced approximately 182 million tons of CO2 emissions. Right? As much as electricity, people think that is entirely stored in batteries and it can be renewed through windmills and water, like dams, stuff like that. Yes, electricity is technically a renewable energy. However, the increased demand for AI, the increased demand for AI, thanks to the construction of data centers, the increased demand for AI has needed to build the capital necessary for it, which is the data centers, and the electricity necessary for it, the demand for it has also increased to extreme numbers. And as a result, a lot of data companies or AI data companies, Google, Meta, OpenAI, they are essentially walking back their climate promises that they did a couple years ago, back then when they were liberal and stuff, and are using not renewable energy to fuel up their data centers, which means fossil fuels, of course, and coal, right? More specifically, we are going back to the Industrial Revolution and using coal now to power up our AI. So AI already on its own is very contaminates a lot. Not only in general the biosphere and even more accelerating climate change, which Jesus fucking Christ I'm feeling right now, but more specifically it fucks over, and I mean fucks over, the local populations. Just in this area, right? Just in the Bear River or Box Elder County, which is the location of this mega project, right? That we have just looked at. Where are we? I just had it. Never mind. Let me pull it up again just so we see it. Right? This is the plan. Just in this specific area, the construction is expected to raise daytime temperatures in Box Elder County by as much as 5 degrees Fahrenheit and during the day, and 28 degrees during nighttime. That is significant. That is not something to just pass around. And that is just temperatures. Apart from temperatures, data centers consume water, a fuck ton of water. And the construction of this mega project they have already put into motion diverting mass amounts of water, which would be in public use, or it would be just in the county, accessible to everyone, or at least given to people through some kind of a water company, and have diverted it, or are already making plans to divert it specifically and exclusively to this data center. Which means that that's going to create, because water is a finite resource after all, it's going to create scarcity in the area, raising water prices up. This is not a one-time phenomenon. This is something that we see all the time, all across the United States. And we also see it in other parts of the world, more specifically Mexico, where we are already seeing like indigenous communities or local communities suffering mass droughts as a result of data center construction. Now, apart from like the immoral, destructive consequence of this plan, let's also look at kind of the legal or undemocratic. Oh yeah, also apart from that, the Utah State University, I wish I could pull up the thing. I should have saved it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, there we go. I'm so quick with it. I'd be so quick with it. Here we go. Analysis finds Box Elder data, which is the data center we're talking about. Center could release as much heat as 23 atomic bombs per day. The energy released from these data centers are equivalent to 23 Nagasaki atomic bombs every single day. We're not talking about radiation, right? We're talking about purely energy. But that's why it's raising daytime temperatures by 5 degrees Fahrenheit and during the day. And how much was it during the night? 28 degrees during the night. Because these things are hot and they're releasing it. Because data centers are fucking powerful, get really hot, and that's why you need these mass amounts of water, because you need to cool them down, essentially, right? The analysis prepared by Dr. Rob Davies, a physics professor at Utah State University, says that the Stratos project, right, this is the project we're talking about, is expected to rely on massive dry cooling infrastructure using hundreds of acres of industrial scale fans to continuously cool down hot radiator pipes. Okay, I did not know this. I thought it was going to be water cooled, just like the majority of data centers. Because I saw it in a video, they're already diverting water towards it, but they're using a dry cooling technique, which means that they're not cooling it with water, which is, I don't know if it's good or not. Now instead of using water, they're just using a fuck ton of fans to cool these data centers down, right? Data centers, if you don't know, I don't want to mansplain this to you, but data centers get fucking hot, right? And when they get hot, they need to get cooled down, because if not, they're just going to overheat and explode, essentially, right? I mean, if you have a computer, it works very similarly. Unless you have like a very desktop computer, your computer probably has some kind of, well, no matter what, your computer has a cooling system inside. In like regular small computers, it's usually just a fan. If it's more powerful, it can also use water cooling. But it's a small computer. Now imagine this, probably 1 trillion times bigger, all just to power essentially the AI revolution. Yeah, great. Now, I was looking for something. We can look at this video just to get you a bit more of a perspective of what we're talking about. All right.
This is what the new data center in Box Elder County could look like. Large buildings with glass walls on 40,000 acres of land in the Hansel Valley area near the Great Salt Lake. Now, we got these new renderings of what could be the footprint of this 7.5 gigawatt Stratos project, built with the state's military installation.
Hello, J-Sick in the chat. How's it going? Sorry, we're watching a video on the new data center that's being built in Utah. I am going to talk a little bit later about why this is so shit. Because there are so many data centers being built all across the United States. It's probably going to happen in Europe soon as well. It's already happening in Mexico. I'm going to talk about the relevance of it in just a second. Let's just finish this video.
A new water rights application has been submitted to divert water to use for generating power.
Oh, okay. That's why. I thought that the water is being used for cooling, is actually being used as water generation. That is very funny, because usually the water for data centers is being used for cooling, but this thing is using dry cooling, which is just using so much electricity.
Application is for much less, asking for 11 acre-feet instead of the earlier filing for about 1,900 acre-feet. Now, that application was withdrawn about a week and a half ago. Almost 4,000 people submitted formal protests or letters of concern to that application. People have already started to submit protests to the changed application online too.
This is Form 990 from the
So this is Kevin O'Leary. He is the billionaire investor that's heading this project right now. He's a fucking demon, okay? We're gonna see just in a second why he's such a shithead.
A whole bunch of clandestine different entities, and I've traced every single one, and I'm going to publish it today.
Celebrity investor in the project Kevin O'Leary claimed over the weekend that one of the groups opposing the data center has ties to China. On Monday,
China?
we still haven't seen those documents from him or heard back after reaching out to his team. Alliance for a Better Utah says they don't have any such ties and said they're not worried about what could be released.
So essentially, let's talk in the next section a little bit about why this is such a big deal. On the surface, it's a regular data center. It's fucking gigantic. I forgot to mention the project is not just a regular data center, right? I said that it's 40,000 acres, which is around, I did the conversion because I'm not American. It's about 161 squared kilometers. It's a gigantic data center, right? I mean, there is a bit of an outline right here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the way. Here you have it. That's how big it is, but you can't really imagine it. So I put it in American terms. It's the size, it's 3 times the size of Manhattan. Yes, New York City, Manhattan. 3 times the size of the entire island is gonna be the size of this single data center monstrosity, right? Now you might be thinking a little bit now, or realizing why this is such a big deal. The reason why it's such a big deal is because it went through essentially no consent from the local population, right? This is not a new thing. Data centers, whenever they get built, some multi-billion-dollar company, investor fund, whatever, they get the licenses from the state because the American government and the local authorities, they don't give a shit about. They just get it from the local governments. Essentially just enable capital to do whatever they want as long as they have the money. So they purchase the license from the state to build essentially whatever they want. And it goes through no public debate. There is no referendum. There is no debate about whether this should be built, could be built. What are the logistics? What is the environmental impact? The public has no saying on whether this gets built or it doesn't get built, right? This one, as I previously mentioned, is even more destructive than could be imagined. I mean, it is built on essentially a natural park, right? Or a natural reserve for animals. It's going to be completely destroyed. And the environmental impact for the local population is beyond comprehension. And the thing is that a lot of the data or a lot of the research on environmental impact is not existent yet, right? This is such a new phenomenon that we don't even know the long-term effects of these data centers. We just know that it raises CO2 emissions. We know that it consumes a fuck ton of electricity. We know that it pollutes. It pollutes energy. It pollutes also noise. Right? There's a special case of that happening in fucking Virginia, I think. But there is not a lot of like long-term effect research done about these data centers. Now, understandably, the local population is angry about this because there is no process of debate with them. Here we have a video about essentially I think it's the local council being booed by protesters. Let's see. That's one of the guys, right? So you can see there's a lot of people there. A lot of people with signs. Might give you an idea about the popularity of this construction project. So as we can see, this project has garnered a lot of attention just because of how unpopular it is. I'm not kidding that 2 weeks ago I was writing a seminar work about exactly this phenomenon happening all across the United States. So this is very close to me because I know just how devastating these projects are, and because of the lenient market regulations on capital in the United States and in many parts of the world, just through decades of austerity politics and neoliberal market reforms, these things just happen because there is no government to stop it. The government that is supposed to be in place to stop this, right? The government that is meant to be in place to stop projects that contaminate the environment, that kill people long term, give people cancer, or any kind of impact that fucks over workers or fucks over the environment or animal life, anything, is gone because neoliberal politics have convinced us that all of that is communist, socialist bullshit, and that by limiting government, we are going to create the most efficient and equal society, which is, of course, like, if you even think about it for 5 seconds, you know it's bullshit. But there is an entire political culture now built on the ideas that if we give the market more power, then everything is going to be solved. And as we can see, it gets us to a place where we have 1,000 mega data center projects every week that do not go through any kind of public debate, fuck over the population, and kill the environment and kill us slowly. Now, apart from that, we have this video from Tucker. I don't know if you know Tucker Carlson. I'm very familiar with it. I remember back then when he was a Fox News host. Now, you probably know Fox News. Why is that? Because they have been probably the vanguard of the American far right, the strongest vanguard of the American far right, just because of their power of getting Donald Trump into power originally in 2016 and maintaining their support for blatantly American fascism forever now. They have always been not an official like news source, by the way. They are designated as like an entertainment group. What I'm trying to say is that Tucker Carlson, famous host of Fox News, has been fired a couple of years back, and he's been kind of doing his own single work ever since. Now, why am I showing a clip of him? Is because, unfortunately, and I say this with great sadness, Tucker Carlson sometimes has decent takes, and it's not because he's a good person. He is a horrible person. He's a person that has not only said a bunch of hateful, misogynistic, racist, Islamophobic, transphobic things in his past, directly allowing many American politicians, the American far right that is now established and institutionalized in American politics, he helped them get into power. But also, like, when you look at his politics, it is just blatant white nationalism, right? Or white supremacy nationalism. The thing is that sometimes he has decent takes on things like Israel and on things that fuck over the American working class. It's only that his idea of the American working class are white people, right? So, whenever you see him having a good take against someone like Kevin O'Leary here, or sometimes he has decent takes on Israel and Palestine, just because he's a big America First guy, so he doesn't understand why the United States is giving Israel like $30 billion annually. Don't think that he's a good person. Just know that he is doing this, you know, as they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's exactly Tucker Carlson. Let's look at this clip of him actually pushing back on Kevin O'Leary and his plan.
Let me ask, though, about why taxpayers should have to pay for this if it's a private business and your tenants are some of the richest companies in the world. Why would taxpayers be required, as they now are, to subsidize this?
They don't necessarily have to do that. They just won't win any contracts. It's a competition.
But why are you getting tax breaks is my question.
Yeah, everybody, you go back and you say, what incentives can you give us to invest $15 billion in the first 1.5 gigs? That's what it takes. I have to go raise 50.
I'm gonna answer the question in the chat in just a minute. Let's just finish this clip. I will answer it. Don't worry.
$15 billion.
Well,
that's just
okay,
the
but anyone who
first
starts a business, why should taxpayers have to pony up for that?
They don't. But
Well, of course they do.
others-
If you're getting a tax break and they're not, they're making up the difference. There's a state
Hey,
budget.
that's no problem. That's
Yeah.
no problem. I can build it in Texas. I can build it in Jacksonville, Mississippi.
No, but
they're the-
why, if it's such a good business, would you be asking taxpayers to help pay for it without giving them equity in the company? Are you giving taxpayers shares?
No, the investors get the shares. But here's why they would do it.
Why would the taxpayers have to?
Well,
I mean, in other words,
I'm
if you want to
telling
start
you
a business, but why am I, as a taxpayer, forced to pay for your business? I don't get it.
Broken clock strikes right twice a day. That's exactly Tucker Carlson right here. And that gets us to another point that I forgot to mention, is that this thing is not built by the billionaire, right? Or it's not paid by it. As much as this guy is a very, very rich individual, I forgot to Google his net worth, but he's famous for being a multi-billion dollar investor. He is not really the one paying for this. Who is it paying for? Well, Tucker already kind of mentioned this. And that is because, I'm just looking up the statistic here, the Utah state, the state, right? They didn't just allow him to give him the license. The Utah state gave Kevin O'Leary here a 92% energy tax cut and an 80% property tax cut to build this data center. Essentially, this thing is being completely financed, or by vast majority financed by taxes, by the state that is exempting this project from paying taxes, right? A lot of the energy, the money that's going to be put towards this is going to either, he's not going to have to pay, or it's going to be directly paid by taxpayers, right? That's why Tucker is pushing on him a little bit here, because it's like, you know, free market, why aren't you paying for this, right? If you want it so much, why aren't you putting how expensive? $100 billion towards it. That is because capitalism, at the end of the day, will find any way imaginable to cut down on costs and to make as much profit as possible. And is going to even use the state to facilitate the construction or facilitation of capital if it means that it's going to be cheaper. That's how it works. Now, to answer the question, I'm just seeing that OBS disconnected. I hope we are back. To answer the question, right, in the chat, the data center will bring more economic growth to the area, new businesses, new shops, and more opportunities. No, sorry, I'm not making fun of you. The data center is expected to create 1,000 permanent jobs, right? The construction is one thing, but apart from the construction, once it's done, data centers don't really require that much maintenance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of computers that you just need to kind of maintain, but the jobs in the area are going to be very little. And even apart from that, you have to ask yourself, are the costs equivalent to the destructive impact that this project is creating? I would say that no project that is harming the environment, killing wildlife, and essentially fucking over the local population, because they're going to have to pay essentially the difference that is not being paid, or like the difference, the environmental difference, but also like the taxes and energy, because it's going to raise energy in the area, maybe in the entire state, as a result of this project. It's going to be paid by the local population. It's just inflation, right? I don't think that that's worth it. And arguing that jobs are just like saving all of this, I don't think makes a lot of sense, right? Like you can say that this creates jobs, but at the end of the day, there are jobs in a lot of sectors. There are jobs everywhere. Unemployment is not the biggest issue in the United States right now. It's living costs are the biggest issue. And you can create jobs in many different sectors. The problem is that capitalism does not necessarily want to create jobs. It wants to cut down on jobs. A lot of the jobs are, that's why, you know, there's the saying that AI is going to take away our jobs. And that is because it's much easier to automate a lot of jobs rather than giving them to individuals. Now, they don't necessarily want to create jobs. And even if it created a lot of jobs, I don't think that this makes a lot of sense to build anyway. Economic growth, I mean, this is not really producing anything, right? All of the economic growth is speculative because of the AI bubble, right? Financial capital. Maybe it's going to raise the speculative bubble of AI, that is for sure, but is it actual economic growth if it's not manifested in anything material for the population? At the end of the day, GDP does not tell you a whole lot about how the population is living. If people cannot afford their groceries, cannot afford the house, cannot afford to even drive a car because now there's a war in Iran, that is not good living standards, right? Economic growth is only as good as it's translated into what it gives to the population. The United States has I think it's slowly being overtaken by China, but it has the largest GDP in the entire world. But the living standards in the United States, universally for the vast majority of the population, have been horrible, have been terrible. If you look at any metric, from the cost of living to homelessness, from groceries to mortgage rates and everything, it's been for the last, well, fucking forever, since the 1980s, but for the last 10, 20 years, have just been decreasing. The minimum wage is stagnant while productivity is going up and up. And profits for corporations are going up and up, but it's not reflected in wages for the workers. It's not reflected in better living conditions for the vast majority. So I don't think that an imaginary line going up... Wait, are we still streaming? I hope so. I'm getting some errors here. Okay, good. I don't think that an imaginary line of economic speculation going up and up and up is a good metric of how a population is living. I think better metrics are just living, not only looking at inequality, but access to basic needs. Housing, energy, food, right? Transportation, all of that. That's why here in Europe we pride ourselves so much on being better off than the Americans, even though that is also largely a lie, because we also implement essentially neoliberal austerity politics, which are getting us closer to living in what the United States is living right now. But we look at having better quality food, having in some European countries we have public housing, right? We have universal healthcare, we have public transportation. Those are all results of public ownership of some like basic human rights or resources. But it also, we see that like decent living is reflected in services that are provided for us, not just a line of economic growth. This only is expected to create 1,000 permanent jobs. I can very quickly look at the population of the area. But even if you create jobs, okay, the population was 58,000, right? Up from yeah, it's around 58,000 people in the area, and you also have to think, what kind of jobs are these going to be? You know, like, where was I before? What kind of jobs is it going to be? Is it construction? Is it computer programming, engineering? What kind of jobs is it gonna be? Just because you create these jobs does not mean that the people are actually gonna have like the qualifications for them, or they're gonna get them. Anyway, I don't think that a GDP is a good estimate of how good or not a population is doing. But tell me, what are your thoughts? We can have this debate. I'm not against it. But, you know, economic growth, we've been going through economic growth, you know? And is it being reflected in our everyday lives? Because unless you have a way to direct that economic growth towards redistribution of the wealth, it's irrelevant, right? And it's been center-right, right-wing, and far-right parties, like from neoliberals, sometimes even social democrats, but mainly neoliberals, to the entire right-wing, that for the last 30, 40 years have been implementing austerity politics and market reforms that gave more power to the private sector, which essentially just means there is no redistribution. It gives more power to capital to expand. It completely destroys unions. It destroys any kind of public programs because that is not necessary, and it's too much of it creates a deficit. but then you cut taxes on capital, you cut any form of redistributive politics that could take this hypothetical wealth that is being created, still in an exploitative manner, of course, but is being created, and you don't give it to the population. You keep it for private capital. You keep it for the 1%, and that's why you get where we are now, where I think the metric is that the top 1%, global 1%, let me just check this out. Ownership. There's a study. Yeah. You know, Oxfam, I don't know. I don't know why my light just went on. Come on, don't tell me you're dead. There we go. That the top 1% now owns more than 95% of the wealth of the entire humanity. I think that there is... yeah, the world's biggest 50 corporations are worth $13 trillion. That is just accumulated... Okay, my light... I'm sorry. Where is this? Doesn't like me. Doesn't want me. Bueno, let me see if I can do it like this. No, I don't like that light. Oh boy. Can never be too prepared for these things. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I can fix this. I mean, I need to connect it to a cable, and it's up here. Fuck. What if I have it here? Give me 1 second. My phone should be charged by now. Let's play some music while I am figuring this stuff out. Ah. See? Where can I put this? There we go. Well, it's not perfect, but it's there. My head is shining. Alright. Let's continue from this. Is there any more questions? No? Do we want to say anything or comment about this manner? We can do that. But I want to keep going. I want to keep talking about the AI thing, though, because I think it's important. Now, how did the license happen, right? Like, how did this... Of course, the United States, as I mentioned previously, right? Like, it's not much better here in in Europe. But if you are a capitalist in the United States, if you're a corporation, you can essentially bypass any public debate about anything and build whatever you want. We know that the United States is extremely lenient when it comes to capital, private property, right? To a point where it's just ridiculed. But they essentially used this obscure state agency known as Military Installation Development Authority, and also like private meetings with the Box Elder County Commission with no public comment or no public supervision or anything, right? The guy, Kevin O'Leary, ojo, promises to use the data center to help national security. This is very funny what it just showed because it's a bunch of fucking military tanks. But the guy essentially is gonna use the data center to power up AI technology that is gonna be used by the US military and by the US government for national security. Now, if you're not a toddler, you know that national security is a very nice, I guess, dog whistle to mean we're gonna use it for the military, and that military is gonna be used to destabilize and overthrow any kind of country that we don't fuck with. In the most recent example, that is Iran, the war in Iran. But in previous examples, it's been Gaza, right? Israel is directly funded by the United States and helped, not just economically, but also sending them weapons. And also the invasion of Venezuela. Now, AI, how is that related to U.S. military? Where? Well, it's a good transition into Palantir. Palantir is probably the closest thing that we have to Big Brother that there is. Palantir is an AI company that creates AI specifically used for military objectives. Palantir cooperates with the US military, but it also has ties with Israel and creates AI technology that how is it? They analyze human behavior and can determine if a person is a threat or not. They scan millions of data to determine next steps for military. I don't really want to get into Palantir because that's a whole other thing. But if you know anything about Palantir, you know that it's like the most evil company next to like BlackRock. It's like that company from Cyberpunk. And Kevin O'Leary has deep ties with the American right wing, which also has ties with Palantir, right? Peter Thiel, another evil billionaire, is the CEO of Palantir, and he's a Trump supporter. And he's like a weird techno-fascist, where he believes that the world should be run by billionaires and the working class should be completely enslaved by billionaires running on AI. It's a fuckfest. It's insane. But it's not relevant in this case. The only relevant part is that Kevin O'Leary wants to cooperate with the US State Department to create AI for the US military. Fun stuff. Now, in a bit more hopeful news, possibly, they're like this with more. How do I say this? With how bad things are, it essentially brings it more into the light, and it has created like a mass movement or like a mass protest around this. Just 2 weeks ago, when I was writing my work around AI, there's not that many people who are protesting the construction of data centers, and this project is so destructive and is such a monstrosity and is like so clearly evil. I'm gonna read the next comment that it's created mass protests, and right now the county is getting signatures to call for a referendum, right? They need 5,000 signatures to get a referendum going to determine, like, put it essentially into the public decision on whether this should be built or not. Apart from that, they also, as I said, the state commission, it was with the consent of the state commission, right? The data center was built with the consent of the state commission, but without any public debate. What happened? Well, once like public protest happened, right? We had this video of people booing the guy, right? Like it created a lot of discourse. What the state commission did was the local state response was they threw out all the complaints that were written about this data center being built and have declared that any new complaints have to be paid for, right? There is essentially a pay to complain card where you have to pay $15 to submit a new complaint to the state, which is just like so just on its face plutocracy as it can be. You have to pay to complain to the state. And even when you complain, as we can see, the state just does not give it into consideration. There is no democratic process. None. Absolutely none. Now. What comment do we have here? The Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution. What do we constitute as a revolutionary technology? Is it like, you know, we look at the industrial revolutions. The first one was, I think it was the steam engine, right? We had We had the second one built around like automation, Fordist style, manufacturing, car production, right? Transatlantic development. We also had the third industrial revolution was I think it was the robotics, right? The robotics was the third one, and the fourth one was the internet, I think, if I remember correctly. Now, the Industrial Revolution should not on its face immediately be considered a good thing, I think. Like, I am not going to be some, like that we should go back before the Industrial Revolutions and like abolish all machinery and technology, no. But I also recognize the destructiveness that a lot of these technologies brought onto the world. The problem not necessarily is the technology itself, is who gets to make the decisions around the technology. AI is not in the hands of the public. It is a technology that is entirely in the hands of a few corporations, right? And they get to decide what to do with it. Just because it's different does not necessarily mean that it's progress, in my opinion. I don't think that you can create a thing and say it's good because it's different than what we had before. AI could be a good thing, but who does it serve right now? It's not in the public hands. You have to pay for it, right? Right now, of course, I know ChatGPT, Cloud, Grok, they are like, there's free versions for them, but at the end of the day, they are not being, it's not in the public realm. So that means that it's not decided upon by us. And it never has. These technologies have always been in the hands of capital or governments. But at least before, they, on the one hand, did not have such a environmental impact. And when they did, we did something about it, right? The Industrial Revolution was extremely destructive, both on the environment and on human labor. But what we did is that we unionized and we created regulations around these technologies and this capital that made it so a lot of the negative impacts of industrialization were minimized, right? It was always about control. But at least back then, when you create a steam engine, you created trains. Now, trains and ships were, of course, created to transport large amounts of capital, of resources, rather to build new capital or to transport already existing products, right? It's the flow of capital. That's normal. But trains can also be used to transport humans. I have an ambulance outside. Give me 1 second. The same thing happened with essentially every new technology under the Industrial Revolution. You have a technology that can be used both for the expansion of capital. It can be used for wars, right? For destruction, but it can also be used by the people. I mean, come on. Like planes, tanks, they can be used for transport, but they can also be used during a war. Right now, AI is overwhelmingly has a negative impact. It has a negative impact on the environment. It has a negative impact on the working class. And it has a negative impact on just our fucking brains. Because we have become reliant on this agent that tells us everything we want to hear, never questions us, never debates us, and gives us sometimes false information, or it gives us information that is screwed towards whatever the ideological line of the company that owns the AI is. AI does not have a positive impact. Now, I'm not saying that it cannot have a positive impact, but you gotta ask yourself who controls this technology. Because it's just in the hands of corporations. The governments are not doing anything. And the corporations are actively using this technology to, as I said, replace us, right? Replace the working class, automate us. They use it for wars, right? Like Palantir and many other like security companies, which are using them to like apply AI to either surveil us or to kill us, right? Rather, it's people in Palestine, or if it's people in Iran, or if it's gonna be people in Latin America. And the only like public domain AI that exists is shitty AI videos which are destroying our brain, and ChatGPT, which people use overwhelmingly to plagiarize or to get very easy answers on exams, or for academia, or I know way too many people that use it as Google. You can just Google it, but no, you use ChatGPT because you think that it's better. So right now, and you can push me on this, I'm okay. Right now, AI does not have a positive impact. And just because it's a new thing, it's a new industrial revolution, does not necessarily mean that it's good. It could be good in a future society where this thing is in the public domain. AI could be used by the public sector to automate jobs that are not that people don't want to do. But it's not democratically it's not democratically decided, because we live in a society where everything but the means of production, from our workplace to the streets that we walk on, to the houses that we live in, everything is in the hands of capital, in the hands of capitalists, of the people that own capital. It's not in our hands. It's not democratically decided upon. Our workplace is not run by us. It is run by 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people who decide how to make as much profit as possible. And if that means automating the entire workplace, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. Because they need to make profit, because that's how the system works. Apart from that, to finish with the AI thing, that's not the only AI funny thing that happened. The construction of this essentially destructive AI mega project was not enough for this week. We also had not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive instances in 1 week of out of touch. I don't know if they are all CEOs or spokespeople for CEOs, but we have 3 consecutive examples of out of touch CEOs for some reason, like hailing for AI on stage in front of university graduates, right? Supporting AI in front of university graduates on the one hand, but also being so out of touch that they don't realize why they are being booed by these students. So the first one that I saw, and I think it was the first one that happened, but I'm not sure, was Gloria Caulfield, a real estate executive who was booed by the students when she mentioned AI during her commencement speech at the University of Central Florida of Arts and Humanities. That is such a hilarious headline because, whoops, disconnected. Are we good? Are we good? We should be good. Because you are in front of art students hailing AI. The thing that is taking their jobs, which is destroying people's creativity, right? Because corporations end up using AI instead of human labor. They end up using AI instead of human labor, which means that artists who are already struggling lose their jobs in the creative industries. You mention how amazing AI is in front of these graduates. And then you're surprised, and this girl was genuinely surprised why she's getting booed off the stage. Let's look at the first clip.
Now that said, we are living in a time of profound change. That's an understatement, right? Profound change.
I'm sorry. You can already tell this girl is nervous, right? You can already tell this girl has not given that many speeches, and she was just invited for some fucking reason to give a speech in front of 100 or something, hundreds of students. You can kind of tell in her voice. It reminds me of me when I sometimes give presentations. And then just like the worst thing imaginable happens to this lady. I'm not feeling sorry for her because at the end of the day she is like I don't know what's the word, like in support of something that I'm against, and she is an executive, but you gotta feel a little bit bad for her.
And let's face it, change can be daunting. The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution.
Oh. 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 Oh.
Okay. I struck a chord.
Oh.
May I finish?
Oh. She is not. This is the worst thing that could happen to her. You can tell.
Only a few
The voice crack.
years ago, AI was not a factor in our lives.
Banger.
Okay, we've got a bipolar topic here, I see. Okay, and now AI capabilities are in the palm of our hands, and oh, I love it. Passion, let's go.
Poor girl. Well, let's face it. I can't think of an equivalence where it's like going in front of 1,000 chickens and talking about how KFC is making profits. You know, like you're going in front of people who are losing their jobs and their future looks dim because of AI. Already dimmer than it would be without AI, because already the arts, it's hard to survive in that industry. And you're telling them that this thing is the next industrial revolution and it's great, you know? And then you're surprised about the reception. Like, no way that you spin this. Like, you can talk about AI, at least in, as, you know, like, ChatGPT, you know? Like, it's cool because some things are automated and you can use it for a lot of tasks that would take a long time. Fine, alright? I already think that, you know, the environmental impact and what it does to our brains is not good. And it being in the hands of corporations is not good. But another discussion is generative, like, image AI and video AI, which is just not good. It's not good as in, like, the art itself. It's horrible. And it's not good as in the human impact. The impact that it does to our brain. It destroys creativity. Just because I can write into a chatbot, make me a video of Tom Cruise doing a backflip and jumping off a building and then being hit by a bulldozer. I don't give a fuck. That is, like, as much as it's maybe fun to look at, the impact that it has as a result of it, like the industry using it for movies now and TV shows, and the impact that it has on people just like not doing art. There's so many people that do AI art, and then they said that they are artists. You're not doing art. You are not doing a passion project. You're not putting your brain to work. You're letting this AI model, which, like, very openly, very, like, it's not a secret that AI is built on the work of other people, right? Like, AI compiles millions of data, and then it uses that data for whatever you tell it, right? So it steals, right? In the case of image and videos, it steals data from artists, and you don't use your brain. It is just a sad, sad reality. So that's the first one, being booed off the stage. The second one happened a couple days later. Ex-CEO of Google, again, for some reason, in front of University of Arizona graduates, while urging them to embrace AI, telling them, hey, all of you, yeah, 1/3 of you is probably going to be jobless as a result of this new technology, because at the end of the day, automation is not actually helping anyone. It's helping the people on top, and the rest of you, we can go fuck ourselves. Telling the graduates that we should embrace AI. It's cool, guys. Once again, booed.
Time magazine selected its Person of the Year for 2025, and this time it was the architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting.
Interesting.
It will touch every profession, every classroom, every hospital, every laboratory, every person, and every relationship you have. I know what many of you are feeling about that. I can hear you. There is a fear.
There is a fear, guys. The fear is present.
We do not know.
The fear is present in my bones right now.
Of what this transformation will look like. Choose a diversity of perspectives, including, let me add, and if you'd let me make this point, please.
So
If you don't care about science, that's okay, because AI is going to touch everything else as well. Whatever path you choose.
it's like a CEO getting on the stage in front of millions of workers and telling all of them that they are getting laid off. But he's doing it with a big grin on his face and calling it progress. That's essentially what this guy is doing. There's no other way of seeing this, right? This guy's not even hiding it. At least the lady before, she was like, okay, like, it's a controversial topic. But this guy is just saying it. And he's saying, this will touch all the jobs. He's saying that all of these jobs are going to get automated. And under capitalism, jobs are not created unless it creates profit. Jobs are not created unless it creates productivity. Or not even productivity, because productivity can happen without human labor. Human labor is just another factor in the production of capital. Of products, of commodities. If human labor is not necessary for the sustaining of the system, well, then there is not going to be any human labor. And that's why jobs get laid off. And then it's up to the government, if it desires, to pick up the pieces of millions of unemployed individuals and either create jobs in the public sector or create homeless shelters. And sometimes it doesn't even do either. That's the system we live under. And now this third guy, I haven't even seen this clip, is another CEO. Is this grads? It's another graduates. Grads boo Scott Borchetta, CEO of Big Machine Records, don't know the company, but he's a CEO, when he brings up AI during commencement speech. Why in a single week, I know that it's graduate month or like the period, but why are there 3 consecutive CEOs coming to these 3 different universities, hailing AI, commemorating AI in front of thousands of students? Like, we realize just how out of touch billionaires are. Because they look at this and they genuinely are flabbergasted by why these people are booing them. They don't understand it. They are not capable of understanding it. Because for them, profit is above everything else. They call it progress at the end of the day, right? They don't get why these people might be against it. They cannot put themselves into the shoes of the working class individual. Let's look at this guy.
Than in the 50 years prior. Streaming rewrote the economics. Social media rewrote the discovery model. AI is rewriting production as we sit here. I know it. Deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool. Hey, like I said, you can hear me now.
Okay.
Or you can pay me later.
Okay, he's sassy with it. What is going on? This guy does not give a fuck. The previous 2, it went like up. It was like an incremental don't give a fuck. If Y is don't give a fuck and X is time, this guy is linearly at the end. We went from this woman who was like shitting bricks when she got the booze. Let's be real. I would be too. Let's be real. We got this guy who was kind of like, oh, I struck a chord, controversial, but it's progress, guys. You know, he was trying to play it off. This guy just Deal with it. He thinks he's in like a Vine compilation. He's gonna have like glasses fall on his face. Deal with it. Who's laughing?
Hey.
Who's laughing?
About it, okay? It's a tool. About it. Hey, then do something about it.
Do something about it. Yeah, but then when we strike and protest and we get beaten by the cops, we're called communists and agitators and anti-democratic. When we don't do something about it, you think it's consent. So, like, which one is it?
It's a tool. Make it work for you.
Make it work for you. We're gonna put a price tag on it. It's completely in the hands of the corporations that are doing this, and it's taking away jobs. We have no democratic process, decision-making process about this whatsoever. But you want us to do something about it?
Been in the 50s.
Okay. No, he's horrible, but he's kind of funny. Like the way he just do something about it. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. Now, just to answer the last comment, yes, and this guy also mentions it, right? It can be a tool. It's a tool. At the end of the day, a knife is a tool. It can be used to kill a person. It can be used to cut an onion, right? We cannot ban all tools because then we wouldn't have anything to cut an onion with. And that's what I said previously, right? A thing is not bad on its own. It is a tool at the end of the day. The question is who owns this tool? Whose hands is it in? If you have a knife and you give it to 1,000 conducted murderers, you can recognize that that's not a good thing because they're gonna use the knife probably to kill people, right? It's an allegory, but you know what I mean. But if you give it to 1,000 cooks, then they're going to cook you a nice supper. This is the same thing. AI is a tool, and I'm not saying that we should completely abolish it. But on the one hand, it has a horrible environmental impact. But everything has. The question is mediation, and the question is who gets to decide how it's built and how much of it is being built, and is it planned in accordance with like the environment and the planet and the biosphere, right? That's on the one hand, and on the other, right? It's in the hands of corporations right now. It's not in the public domain, and it's also not one tool. It's you can have it even if you create an AI that's public. You're still going to have the private ones, and the private ones are still using it to automate jobs. So the thing is that it's in the private sector in the first place, and the private sector is using it for bad things, like the knife murderer allegory. It's a tool, but it's in the hands of people who are doing bad things. My argument is that AI should be used, but on the one hand, it should be used by the public for automating jobs that nobody wants to like do, and we would need to have a different economic system because at the end of the day, we live in a system where jobs are not something we have control over. But still, we could have restrictions, regulations on AI, how much of it is being built and how much of it is being used. Look at China. I don't have the article with me right now, and please don't ban me as a China propagandist. I don't know why that sounded a little racist, I'm sorry. But China bans AI. Wait, let me just Google this real quick. There it is. Oof, I'm good. I'm not going to delve into this rabbit hole, but there is a law that passed in China, and China is not a communist country. It is still a capitalist economy, but they have strong regulations on the market so they don't completely fuck over the working class. A Chinese court sets limits on the dismissal of a worker replaced by AI, essentially meaning that you cannot automate all jobs. You can automate some, and if you go to China, you know that there's a big AI business. I don't want to read this entire article, but I saw this the other day, that a Chinese court, like the Supreme Court, made it so you cannot lay off workers on AI grounds. You cannot essentially have a worker, fire him or lay them off, and replace them with AI. Simple. That's just one of many restrictions and policies that we can implement to just make the world better. you know, to lower the negative effects of AI. Okay, I've yapped about AI for almost 2 hours now. Let's move on. Do we have any last remarks? We can talk about them another day. I'm sure that this topic is gonna come up again very soon. Now we're going to move towards another. Now we're going to move from North America, the United States, to Latin America. We're gonna talk a little bit about Bolivia, because there's big things happening in Bolivia. Big things. Alright. I'll do maybe one more topic. I wanted to do a lot more, but this topic really like took most of the day, but it's a big topic, you know, given that. Let me just close some of my tabs so I don't overwork. Alright, let's talk about what is going on in Bolivia. Because here on Revolution TV, we like to cover the entire world, and Bolivia has been on our radar for a while. I've been meaning to make a video on it, but I like to cover it like this. Anyway, what's going on? There have been massive strikes happening in Bolivia for the last couple of weeks because of political turmoil that doesn't just date back the last 6 months, but dates back since essentially the time when I got interested in politics. I remember this, essentially the roots of this story are back in late 2019 when Evo Morales, I mean this is an article I wanted to have up anyway, but Evo Morales, who was the ex-president of Bolivia. He was democratically elected in 2005, I believe. He was the sitting president of Bolivia from 2005 to 2019. In 2019, he was ousted in a US-supported coup. Actually, also Elon Musk-supported coup. Because of the vast lithium reserves that Bolivia has. He was ousted in a coup. Why? Because this dear gentleman, Evo Morales, is a dirty commie. He's a dirty, red, socialist commie. And he dared to make the economy function for the people back in his, 14-year presidency. He tried to run for a third term, I believe, but it was very controversial because a third term was not allowed, but it was allowed by the Supreme Court, but the United States did not like that. So in 2019, they staged a coup against Evo Morales, a coup that was semi-successful. Now, on the one hand, in the coup, Evo Morales was exiled into Mexico, and a new sitting president, his opposition leader, Janine Áñez, became a president as a result, not through a democratic process or an election, but as a result of she was elected by, I believe, the court or the parliament as a sitting president. And it also happened right at the beginning of COVID. It was 2019 after all. What happened is during COVID, she did not want to leave. She used all the emergency powers that she could to stay in power despite not being elected democratically. Sorry, I'm not looking up the names. Her name was, well, let's look up the 2019 coup. It was a time of a lot of political turmoil, right? You had Evo Morales, who we saw before, being replaced by this lady, Janine Áñez, who replaced him but did not last very long. Only a year later, despite COVID-19, elections were called upon and she lost. She lost because, guess what? Evo Morales was a very, very popular leader. Why was Evo Morales popular? Well, Evo was able to reduce poverty by 42% and extreme poverty by 60% in that country. He did that by redistributive policies of its production. It increased its productive output and it increased literacy. It essentially abolished what's the opposite of literacy? Like people not being able to read. It created a lot of social programs for the poor, for the working class. He was the first indigenous president of Bolivia. Bolivia is famous for being the country with the biggest indigenous population in the entire world, right? It also expanded healthcare. It essentially created a lot of social programs similar to the Cuban Revolution. It expanded literacy, expanded healthcare, education, abolished, or not abolished, but decreased poverty in many instances, right? He was an extremely popular president, extremely popular. Now, that is not to say that he was an overwhelming 100% popular. Of course, there's always going to be opposition, but in the vast majority, he was extremely popular. We see that today. Now, after the coup, Áñez was rejected in the 2020 election, where new elections were called upon, and a successor to Evo Morales, Luis Arce, became the new president, right? Luis Arce, gentleman right here. This guy, right? Member of the Socialist Party, Socialist Workers' Party, something like that. Socialist Party of Bolivia, right? Successor to Evo Morales, but because Evo Morales was in exile during that time, they did not allow him to continue. They didn't allow him for re-election in the 2020 elections, but his successor, Luis Arce, became the new president. Now, once Evo Morales came from exile, because he was no longer being, trying to arrest him, it kind of created a debate about who should be the president. On the one hand, Evo Morales was overthrown by a CIA coup, which was successful but also not successful because the population did not want Jeanine Áñez to be president. But on the other, Luis Arce was the newly elected president, so it created this weird debate about who should be the president of Bolivia. Unfortunately, that led to where we are kind of today, where in the 2022 election, what was it, the 2022 elections? No, 2025 elections, a new gentleman was elected, Rodrigo Paz. Rodrigo Paz was elected because Bolivia went through a bit of a crisis thanks to COVID, but also thanks to the creation of these social programs and Bolivia restricting a lot of its exports, because at the end of the day, if you're doing trade with the rest of the world, they're going to try to neoliberalize your country as much as possible. As a result, Bolivia did go through some hardships, and Rodrigo Paz was able to exploit both the crisis as well as the debate within the Workers' Party to gain the 2025 elections, which happened last year, if you know what day it is, what year it is. Now, it's only been 6 months since this guy's been in power. He's been the president of Bolivia, and shit is already going down. If you look at the Bolivian news, you know that for the last couple of weeks I'm not from Bolivia, you know that there have been mass protests, especially from the indigenous communities, from the poor working class, especially from the miners, because it's a big industrial country. Not industrial, but a big, what's the word? Exporter of raw materials, right? So it's got a big miners working class. Miners and unions have been striking and protesting for the last couple of weeks. That is what is going on in Bolivia. But why is it going on? Well, for two reasons. On the one hand, right, Rodrigo Paz have been in power for only 6 months, but this guy is not a member of the Workers' Party. He's not a socialist. He is a right-wing. He describes himself as a center-right politician, but he is a very pro-Western, pro-United States, neoliberal politician. He promised to resurrect Bolivia by putting it closer to the United States economy, and people don't like that because all the progress that was made under Evo Morales and the austerity measures that they called like the neoliberal politics have been abolished under Evo, and now this guy is bringing them back, right? Policies such as like liberating the market. So, massive protests are all over Bolivia, mainly from indigenous communities, unions, and miners who support Evo Morales, right? This is the indigenous flag. Why are they protesting? They are all protesting Rodrigo Paz, and they are calling him to step down from office. One of them is because the living standards, even under Rodrigo Paz, have been just going down significantly through privatization of strategic resources, economic liberalization, and the reduction of the state's role in the economy in general, which just means that private capital is once again doing whatever it wants, just like we saw with data centers. It just spreads and it only creates profit. It does not look onto the effects that it has on the population. One of the policies was the elimination of the tax on large fortunes, which it means that essentially rich people are not getting taxed. Large fortunes are not being taxed. We have that here. I had this opened here, yeah. It's in Spanish. Is there a way for me to translate it? Yeah. There we go. One of the policies of Rodrigo Paz, la anulación del impuesto a las grandes fortunas genera polémica en Bolivia, right? Essentially, not taxing large fortunes. This is translating forever. It's not really necessary. You can read the article yourself. On the another policy that he implemented was privatization, austerity policies, and rising living costs. Another thing that was done, however, was directly towards Evo Morales. Let me drink a little bit. My mouth is smart. Because people are discontent, Rodrigo Paz, the current government needed to find a scapegoat. And of course, because the supporters, the strikers, and the indigenous community heavily is behind Evo Morales, that scapegoat by the government became Evo Morales himself, the ex-president that we talked about before. Now, Evo Morales, I don't know if he's within Bolivia right now, but there was essentially, if I find this, there was essentially a plan that leaked. There was a plan that leaked of an attempt. Oh, okay, this needs context. Because one of the policies of Rodrigo Paz, one of the most recent policies, was to allow the American agency, DEA, which is the Department of... Fuck me. You know, you've seen Breaking Bad. Jesus Christ. DEA. English, motherfucker. Do you speak it? Drug Enforcement Administration. Sorry, sometimes I get a little swayed off. Rodrigo Paz essentially allowed the DEA to operate within Bolivia, something that was prohibited after Evo Morales took power in 2005, right? Before the DEA was able to function within Bolivia, then Evo Morales completely prohibited their entry into the country, and now Rodrigo Paz has essentially went back to this policy and let the DEA enter the country. Now, that was already controversial enough. You are letting the Yankees get into the country, and we know that they essentially use any option possible to destabilize your country if they don't like what political opposition you have, right? They used the CIA countless times within Latin America to destabilize governments, and now they are using the DEA to go after Evo Morales. Now, this is a very long article, but I want to focus on a specific part because I took this. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. A couple days ago, like a week ago, Evo Morales tweeted on X, Twitter, that there is a conspiracy, an attempt to go after him, to either kidnap him or kill him. This is very relevant to what we are going to talk about later, because the US right now, there is an active plot to go against many leftist political leaders in Latin America to either kill them or arrest them, which is basically kidnapping, on some kind of drug charges. They first did this with Nicolas Maduro in January. There is a plan to do it with Raul Castro right now, for some reason, and they are trying to do the same thing with Evo Morales. They're going after political opposition that the United States has in Latin America. Now, Evo Morales has tweeted this, and you might be saying, oh, this just might be schizo posting, right? This guy is just paranoid that they are going after him and are trying to kill him. Well, this whole paragraph kind of... Oh no. Where is my... Ah, shit. We have no... Fuck. My battery's over. Fuck. Okay, give me one moment. I don't know what to do with this. Give me one moment. I will be right back. Okay. This is extremely provisional. I don't know if I can do Instagram clips with this fucking camera. What is this, bro? What is this? Uh-oh. Oh my, I guess it's better than nothing, you know? How does that work? Whoop. Oh my god. Give me a second. This is a very, Give me a second. I don't know why I'm whistling into a microphone. We got some music, you know, in the background. Transform, edit transform, there we go. And there we go. Perfect. We are so back. Alright, sorry about that. Well, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, you know? What do we think of the quality, chat? What do we think of the quality? There's still, hey, people are still here. It's my old, like, this thing is 14 years at this point. Old camera that I used to do some old videos on and played with my friends Minecraft. So I'm very glad that I have it and that I conveniently have it placed in my cabinet right here. Damn. Bueno. Anyway, where was I? Well, you might think that this is all just schizo posting by Evo Morales because he's paranoid that they're going after him, but it's not exactly the case. As this article describes, a lot of the things that he tweeted out are actually very consistent with what is going on right now in Bolivia. Because not only has the DEA actually been reinstated within Bolivia and is able to conduct operations within Bolivia, which is fucking insane because the DEA is an American agency and has historically been used. You know, you see Narcos and you see the TV shows and you're like, yeah, they're going after the truck traffickers. But it's historically being used as a proxy by the United States to destabilize governments that it doesn't like. There's a reason why it works. It always worked within governments that are sympathetic to the US. And also, like, they use the DEA to prevent any kind of change of leadership in countries. For example, where do you think Che Guevara was killed, right? He was killed in Bolivia, I think. It was Bolivia. He was killed by Colombian forces in Bolivia because they were just allowed entry within the area. Bolivian forces who were working with the CIA. So this is this does not work under any kind of public supervision. Let's look at it. This part is specifically important. The political and institutional context of the assassination allegation carries weight that pure skepticism cannot dismiss, right? Because it is an allegation, and at this moment, Evo Morales is still alive and he's not arrested. Sanchez Berzain is a real figure with documented history in Bolivian anti-left operations who did flee to Miami in 2003. That's someone that, in the tweet, can I find the tweet? I would really like to find this tweet. Who Evo Morales describes in the tweet as someone who's going after him. The DEA was genuinely present in La Paz under the new agreement. United States Southern Command is operationally active in the region and has, as Trump's military campaign Operation Southern Spear demonstrated in late 2025, authorized lethal force against suspected targets in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific with a frequency that has alarmed human rights lawyers. The Paz government, La Paz is the capital of Bolivia, decision to pursue criminal proceedings against Morales, the arrest warrant for alleged statutory rape, and the contempt finding for his son non-appearance were both issued while the political crisis was escalating, fitted a pattern that Bolivian social movements identified as lawfare, designed to neutralize the principal opposition leader before he could organize resistance. The parallel with the treatment proceedings to remove him from the ballot, the parallel with the treatment of Lula Silva in Brazil before the 2018 election, which used criminal proceedings to remove him from the ballot, was drawn explicitly by several commentators, and the institutional record provides grounds for the comparison. That was a very long paragraph for me to read, but essentially it's saying that it's a very convenient coincidence. I don't know why I'm looking at that camera. This is the new camera I'm using. It's a very convenient coincidence for the current Rodrigo government to essentially, as he's going through these massive protests that are going against him because of the shitty austerity and neoliberal policies that he has implemented, it's very convenient for him to all of a sudden politically and criminally persecute Evo Morales, who is essentially the figurehead of this movement, and charge him against allegations of grape, sorry, I can't say that word on YouTube, grape, which there, as of this moment, is no evidence for, and drug trafficking, which again, there is no evidence for. It's very convenient to charge him with these crimes, as you are inviting the DEA into the country, if you are not trying to actually arrest him, because it is very open that Rodrigo Paz is trying to arrest Evo Morales, and he is getting the help of the Americans to do so. It not only parallels of how Evo Morales was initially overthrown in late 2019, as this article demonstrates, it also parallels the way that Lula da Silva, who is now he's now the president, and he was the president before of Brazil, also another center-left social democratic president, was overthrown with the help of the Americans back in, what was it, 2018, or not? Yeah, essentially. It's all very convenient, if it's not true. There's a question in the chat. How many members in Revolution TV? It kind of depends. It depends on what you describe as a member. We have members, some people who do writing for us. We have some members who also do videos. We have friends in different political parties. It really depends on who's available, who has a lot of time. We have a lot of friends across like places, and we would like to collaborate with more people. We are always open to have collaborators. But right now, the sitting members is around 4. It's not that many. It's a few people. I'm doing most of the political commentary. We are trying to get into more media, not only video, YouTube, and like clips. We're thinking of doing articles. We're building a website. And we also want to do podcasts. Essentially any kind of media to spread the message. Alright. Very good. That's Bolivia. It doesn't go much deeper than that. As of this moment, the state's legal apparatus is trying to pursue these social movements, right? The social movements of indigenous communities and workers' unions. which the current government, linked directly to narco trafficking. Right now, we still don't have any substantial evidence, but they're making shit up. It's very clear because they feel threatened by the working class, so they need to criminalize it in any way they can. And in this case, it's criminalizing it by just calling it drug trafficking, right? It's always something. It's always something. If it's resistance to colonialism, it's terrorism, right? If it's resistance in Latin America, they just slap a big narco trafficking on you and call it a day. It's always been the case. They did it with Maduro as well. They are doing it with Maduro. They are doing it with Cuba. They do it with Mexico. They do it with any kind of country, especially in Latin America, that they deem hostile to the U.S. Right? And I don't mean hostile as in, of course, like economically hostile is enough for the U.S. to go against you. But they need to create something more. Because if you're economically hostile, everybody recognizes that as just like bullshit. Like if that's just democracy. That's just deciding not to trade with the country. So you need to create more, what's it called? Like a harsher sentence. They did that with Cuba, right? Cuba was hostile to the U.S. because they decided to take on a different economic and political model than the United States. But it was mostly the economic model of socialism, right? But you cannot just say that. You cannot just say that this country decided to pursue a different economic model, therefore we need to overthrow them. No, you have to go more. So you need to say, oh, they are allied with the Soviets and they want to destroy us all. Right? Or, yeah. Same thing with Venezuela. They just want to have a different economic model, right? They just decided that they don't want free market, laissez-faire capitalism in their country, and they want a lot of the proceedings coming from their exports of so much fucking oil to go towards social programs and different political structures that prioritize direct, democracy. That's too much. That's too bad. We cannot have socialism. But you cannot just say that, so you have to say that they're sending narco traffickers towards us. It's the same thing everywhere. Happens all the time. Yeah. Is there anything else with Bolivia? Any questions? Anything we can talk about? Anything? Wait. Let me change it here. Because, I feel like I can look at it that way. Wait. There we go. Maybe I should start using this camera. It's kind of got, its own feeling. I don't like... Come on, go a little downer. Okay, now you're just rage baiting me. Come on, camera, stay where you are. Okay, I'm just gonna put it where it was before. I felt like that was better. Okay, that's it. That is Bolivia. I don't know what to talk about else, but I'm going to use it as a very, very nice transition towards the most recent news from literally yesterday. Something that I don't have that much written about, but I can freeball it. And that is news in Cuba. We are still in Latin America. But this time we are going to Cuba. Why? Why are we going to Cuba? Because the US, in their latest attempt to destabilize a country and overthrow it because they don't deem its government friendly enough to the US, have decided to indict former president of Cuba, RAUL Castro, who is the brother of the leader of the Cuban Revolution and also the longest sitting president of Cuba, Fidel Castro. It was his brother. Decided to indict him on what? Narco trafficking? No, that would be too much. We cannot have 2 narco trafficking allegations against socialist presidents in 1 week. No, they are blaming him for a thing that happened 30 years ago. And an incident, a very critical incident, that happened in 1996, which was The shootdown of Brothers to the Rescue aircraft. What was this? Did Cuba decide to attack the US? No. They didn't even shoot down a military plane. What happened was this was happening throughout the 1990s, which in Cuba they called the special period, which was a very, very critical point in Cuban history, kind of similar to what is going through right now, where as a result of the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Cuba lost all economic or global economic help because it largely relied on the Soviet Union for its existence, for stability, because the United States and kind of the rest of the Western capitalist world have sanctioned and embargoed the fuck out of Cuba, which means that Cuba was unable to do trade with the rest of the world. It's a small island nation in the Caribbean, and it doesn't have a large industrial capacity to sustain itself. Something similar happened to the Soviet Union, right? It was also sanctioned and cut off from the rest of the world, but because it was big enough, it was a bunch of countries, but it was largely Russia and the Eastern Bloc. It was able to sustain itself for about 60 years, right? But Cuba did not have that privilege. It's a small island nation, and despite having help from countries like Mexico, it was not able to. Well, it was able to recover throughout the 90s, but that's why it's called the special period, because it is a period of mass poverty and instability in Cuba. And the result of it was a bit more lenient market measures that, with, I think it was the Obama administration, it kind of opened more diplomatic relations eventually with Cuba. And we had Cuba being able to exist on a decent level until early this year, where it's kind of back to the shithole. But this was the special period, 1996. Brothers of Rescue. It was an anti-socialist, anti-Cuban government organization of ex-Cuban refugees or immigrants who immigrated to the United States, and they formed this group, right? Brothers of Liberty. Sorry, Brothers of to the Rescue. That's something else. Brothers of Liberty. An activist non-profit organization in Miami. It was connected to the CIA, of course. It was essentially a CIA proxy or U.S. government proxy that was actively trying to destabilize the Cuban regime. On the one hand, it was trying to do that through propaganda, something that is still going on to this day. But on the other, in 1996, they sent an airplane. They called it a humanitarian airplane. I guess trying to supply Cuba, which on its face is not a bad thing. Only I think what they found out later was that they were planning to do an overthrow of the Cuban government, right? Now, whether it was a planned overthrow or not, I'm not sure, but that does not really matter. What happened is that this non-profit sent a plane to Cuba without the authorization of the Cuban government, and they got shut down in 1996, 30 years ago exactly, right? It's what happened, but given the political turmoil with the United States, if you don't have authorization into a country, you cannot expect to be welcomed and not get repercussions. Of course, I am not exactly in support of it, but I understand why it happened. The US would do the same. Any other country would do the same if an unauthorized plane was entering your airspace. That's exactly what happened in 1996. Now, it was a controversy. It was, it was a thing that got into the news. It's got its own Wikipedia page, everything. But now, 30 years later, in 2026, the United States has decided to indict Raul Castro. I don't know if he was in charge of the military at this point, but they're blaming him essentially for this shoot down and trying to get him arrested for something that happened. I don't give a shit that it happened 30 years ago, right? I mean, you can still get charged for something that happened a long time ago. The thing is, the entire context of the situation is not the fault of Cuba, right? Like, if you send an aircraft into a country without permission and you get shot down, I'm sorry, that's kind of your fault. It happens everywhere. If I send a plane to Germany without authorization and they shoot me down, it's my fault, you know? And that's a country that's next door from here. But for some reason they used this as legitimacy to arrest Raul Castro. Now, Raul Castro living in Cuba, he's a very old guy, but they're doing it anyway. The administration of the United States issued a criminal charges against former Cuban leader Raul Castro over the 1996 downing of 2 civilian planes. It's two, but still, it's the same thing. That's it. Now, this is very recent. That's why I pulled it up at the end now, because we still don't have any news on this, right? This is just like they decided to do this, but they haven't taken any action. But the last time that the US has declared, in its own courts, by the way, because this is not the UN. This is not the UN deciding that Raul Castro should be arrested. No, the Americans just decided to arrest, or decided to indict him and arrest him. The last time that happened was with Maduro in late 2025. I think it was around October, when they declared that he was narco-trafficking. Like, the government decided to do that, like, without any kind of proceeding, or like any kind of actual empirical proceeding. And what happened in January, Venezuela got invaded and they abducted Nicolas Maduro, right? That's the last time something like this happened. What we can maybe expect, and this is not something that's happening in a vacuum, this is happening as the US has increased their sanctions on Cuba since January by so much that Cuba is suffering. The sanctions in Cuba right now are suffocating the country because they don't have access to resources. They don't have access to fuel, mostly, which they use to power the country, because the US has completely sanctioned Cuba. And now, what is it? It's May, so 4 months later, they do this. They do this right here. Last time they did this was with Nicolas Maduro. What we might expect to happen is something similar, where they use this indictment as legitimacy to overthrow the Cuban government, right? Because as much as Raul Castro is alive, he's not... how old is he? He's not the president anymore, right? This is not like Maduro, who was the president at the time of Maduro, right? But that's probably because they cannot really get him on anything else, or they cannot get the current president, who is Miguel. What's his name? Miguel Diaz-Canel. They cannot exactly get him on anything else, or they cannot get him on anything. So they need to go for Raul Castro, who was the former president, and he's not even in power anymore. But I assume they're going to use this as legitimacy, as an excuse to get into Cuba and to potentially overthrow the Cuban regime. Just like, well, they didn't exactly do it with Venezuela because they didn't get rid of the party leadership or the president or the party, funnily enough. But they might do it here because for months now, Trump has been talking about Cuba. He's been talking about how it needs a regime change. He's not hiding it. This is from a day ago. So this is Trump talking about what happened, what the indictment that they decided. If my YouTube decides to load.
Well, they came there that were decimated, whose families were ruined. Appreciate what the Attorney General just did today and was just doing now. Is just watching it. So we have Cuba on our mind. Very important. Been a lot of problem for a lot of years, and this was a big. I think it was a very big moment for people that, not only Cuban Americans, but people that came from Cuba that want to go back to Cuba, people that want to see their family in Cuba. I think this is a very big day, very important day. They supported me to the nth degree. They supported me at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And so I think it's a very important moment.
What about Mr. President?
Okay.
What's coming next for Cuba?
Well, we're going to see. It's a failing nation. You see that. It's falling apart. They have no...
The reason why it's a failing nation, as this guy describes, is because the United States, for the last 50 years, have been suffocating Cuba. Ever since a revolutionary government got into power in Cuba, which was a very democratic process. And if you look at anything in the Cuban government, it is a very bottom-up democratic procedure how they decide their government. But especially like back in the 1960s, when the revolution happened, it was extremely democratic. And the dictatorship of Batista, who was there before, was extremely brutal, and it was a puppet regime of the US. But ever since that revolution happened and won, the US has been suffocating Cuba. Not because it's a dictatorship, but because they simply... Jesus, sorry about that. Because they simply do not like and do not consent the economic and political model that Cuba has. Because the United States does not care about democracy, and it never has. The reason why Cuba is suffering right now is a direct result of the sanctions that have been put in place by the United States. It is empirical. Any kind of academic paper will trace back what Cuba is going through right now to the sanctions and to the embargo. There is no debate about this. But there will still be people out there who will blame the Cuban government. There's still people out there who think that the government is just monopolizing all the resources, or that it's just evil and wants people to starve. Completely ignoring the global economic aspects that like make it happen. Sanctions are an economic, it's a form of economic warfare at the end of the day. All right.
Oil, they have no money. It's a failing nation, so I just can't tell you that. But we're there to help. We're there to help the families, the people. And again, a lot of those people are related to me in the sense that I've had such a great relationship with Cuban Americans. They supported me at a 94% level. That's a pretty good level. And their relatives are there. So
yeah, there's no statistics. 97% level.
Humanitarian basis, we're there to help.
Mr. President was there last week.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that at all?
Well, we have a lot of people there. We have the CIA there. We have Marco is there. Marco's parents, as you know, were from Cuba. So we have a lot of...
Did he just say, just out there blatantly, that they have CIA in Cuba? I love that. This guy's so senile that he completely forgets that some things are meant to be secret. Ay, ay, ay. That's funny.
It's not going to be like the biggest thing we've ever done, but I will tell you, to a lot of people, it's going to be one of the most important. They've been looking for this moment for 65 years. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to, in the meantime, we're going to have to help them out. They have no way of living. They have no food.
Yeah, we're gonna cut off the food and the fuel and then blame the government that the people don't have fuel and food. Like, how on the face lying can you get? At some point, people cannot be this dumb to believe it, no? Jesus Christ. And I know people who believe it. That's the worst part. It's not just like MAGA Trump supporters who you kind of can brush off as, they're stupid, you know? You shouldn't, because at the end of the day, they are victims of this propaganda as well. But I know people who seem educated, and then they repeat this exact same rhetoric again and again and again. They say the same shit about Cuba, the same shit about Venezuela. So many countries that are starving, and they completely forget that the US is using economic warfare against them. There is no honesty in this.
They have no electricity, they have no energy at all, but they do have great people. There are a lot of great people. I mean, I have so many Cuban friends in Miami, mostly in Miami and Florida, and they're unbelievable people. They're unbelievable entrepreneurs, and they'd like to go back. I think hopefully they're going to want to live here, but they want to go back. Maybe they'll invest. We'll see what.
What gets me a lot as well, apart from just like the blatant lies here, are the journalists. The point of journalism is to hold power accountable, and there is not a single, and I know that it's because a lot of these things are highly controlled, but there are no journalists who ask the US about the sanctions. It's not even like a question that's super attacking, you know? It's just, hey, can you explain why don't you lift the sanctions on Cuba? If you love the Cuban people so much, and if you want them to eat, and if you want them to have this energy, which you are depriving them of, why don't you just lift the sanctions that deprive them of these resources? But they will not tell you. They will not ask these questions. Because it's not the ABC News line, or because they are too scared of what that means. To be honest, the Trump administration has used the law as a weapon against any kind of opposition, even rhetorical. So I get it. Fear is a tool in this case, but like, Jesus, you know? It's a simple question.
Happens, but we're freeing up Cuba.
Mr. President, how much
Sorry.
longer do you anticipate the embargo having to be in?
Okay, hey, I can admit when I'm at fault. I can admit. I can concede. I got humbled. I got fucking humbled. Sure, you know what? Fuck it. I'm glad they asked it. I'm glad. That's the point.
Place on Cuba.
Oh.
We'll be announcing it pretty soon.
Oh, but it just got immediately brushed off. He did not even give it time. It's like, how longer this embargo, which is, you know, depriving people of food and energy and resources, how long is it gonna be in place? Should have been a little bit more direct, to be honest. You know what? I stand my ground. They should have been more attacking. Not just, how long is this embargo? Because this guy can just say, as long as we want. You should have been, like, a bit more pushy on him.
Mr. President, should we expect any escalation here, or should they expect anything? Yes.
No, there won't be escalation. I don't think there needs to be. Look, the place is falling apart. It's a mess.
Okay, this was 22 hours ago. We'll see. We'll see in a couple of weeks if they decided to go against Raul Castro or not.
And they've sort of lost control. They've really lost control of Cuba.
Do you think Raul action like you did with Maduro?
I don't want to say that.
Gavin Newsom is on Capitol Hill today. He says that he doesn't think J.D. Vance has what it takes to come after you. What's your response to that?
Who said that?
Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
He said doesn't have what?
The era of Trump ends with you, and that J.D. Vance doesn't have what it takes to come after you.
What is that? I'm so sorry. What the fuck is that question? What? That is such a random question. I would also be like, what are you talking about? I'm so confused. This fucking jet engine behind my ass is disorienting me.
We've done a lot, and JD's very talented. He's a smart guy. He'll do very well if it's JD. We have a lot of very talented people.
Like, why are you asking a question about an election that's like quite into the future, right? Like, I know this guy does not have a lot of years in him, like living wise, I don't think, but that's such an irrelevant question. I'm sorry. Talking about the successor to Trump, as right now these things are still happening. I mean, it's important to talk about it in terms of like knowing what's up ahead, but right now they're in power and they're not really going anywhere unless we do something about it. We cannot wait until the next election.
Hopefully we're going to leave something that's going to be real easy to run.
Okay.
We're doing
Are they still asking about Cuba?
Good brain power.
Okay. Bueno. Alright. There's still a lot of people in here. What are we thinking? Any thoughts? Any questions? Anything I missed? I wanted to talk about the flotilla as well. I might talk about it the weekend because I also want to stream on the weekend. Because it's quite late. I've been streaming for almost 3 hours. Well, 2 hours and a half. And this fucking camera, you know, like, I don't know if I This is the best quality you guys deserve. You know, I need the big camera right next to me, but it's out of battery. I gotta buy a second battery for this. Anything, any questions, anything we want to talk about, small things, other stories. These are the 2-3 main stories I wanted to cover today. We talked about at length about data centers, the construction in Utah, how destructive it is. Then we talked about Bolivia, what's happening there, and a little bit about Raul Castro in Cuba, which is similar to the Bolivia story, right? Just U.S. imperialism kind of mask off, you know, because they used to do this a lot more discreetly, I would say. Hey, let me lower this. The imperialism of the Cold War was so much more hidden. They set up so many proxies. They created so much propaganda. I mean, there's so many, but manufacturing consent, Noam Chomsky, you know, it talks about it at length. Latin America, Eastern Asia, Middle East. But today they don't give a fuck. I mean, there's still some propaganda in place. Of course, they need to talk about freeing up the Cuban people. But they are so blatant about what they're doing. They just go into a country. They don't even create the propaganda that much anymore, because they can get away with it. Let's see how long they get away with it. Alright, people, I might just end it here today. We had a long stream. We can do a little final chat if you guys want about anything, but unless there are any more questions, I don't have any more stories. And I'm on a very scuffed setup right here. I mean, this camera is like 20 years old. This light is not supposed to be down here. It's supposed to be above me, but I didn't charge it. So, let me know. Anything, any last things, any last remarks before we end it? Now? There's a bit of a delay on the actual stream, so it takes a while for the question to get, but if there aren't any more questions, you can use the chat. It's free. The chat, you can ask me a question. You can also send me a DM, but I might get that later. Follow us on YouTube. Wait, where is that? Under it. Follow us on YouTube. Right there. Wait, no, there's no link. But you can follow us on YouTube because, wait, where's the link? Oh, it is there, but it's very small. I need to change that. We have a Discord as well. It's gonna be all in the links in the description on the YouTube, I think. Alright, guys. If there are no more questions, I hope you enjoyed. Why is this so bright? I hope you enjoyed this stream. We had a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground. We even debated a little bit. And I will see you again with a better camera this time. And a better setup. Next, maybe Sunday. Either Saturday or Sunday. We can also cover the things we couldn't cover today. And continue with the stories that maybe are gonna evolve. And other than that, follow us on our social media. We have an Instagram, we have a TikTok, we have a YouTube. Go subscribe to the YouTube right now. Go to the YouTube. Alright, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. I will see you later. Thank you, thank you.